the arid, sun-baked deserts of the American Southwest, where the land stretches endlessly and the air trembles with heat. A mystery lingers. There's a whisper in the wind, a legend of phantom raiders who once dominated these lands, and their ghosts are said to still haunt the wild deserts of Arizona and New Mexico. These aren't just tales told by travelers around a campfire. This is the story of the Apache Ghosts, the mysterious spirits of warriors who disappeared into the desert only to return in the most haunting of ways. But were these ghosts simply folklore, or is there something more lurking in the shadows of the land? The Apache weren't just warriors, they were masters of an art of war that made them nearly impossible to defeat. They didn't fight like traditional armies. No, they didn't march in uniform lines, wielding heavy weapons like their European counterparts. The Apache were guerrilla fighters. They were ghosts in the desert, experts in ambush, and specialists in making their enemies never know what hit them. The Apache didn't believe in conventional battles. They preferred to strike from the shadows. They would ride in silence, blend into the barren landscape, and wait for the perfect moment to strike. They knew the land better than any of their enemies. They understood the wind, the sand, and the way the desert could either give or take life in an instant. The Apache weren't just skilled in combat. They were known for their supernatural connection to the land. Many believed they could communicate with the spirits of the desert. They could predict weather changes, follow tracks with supernatural precision, and disappear into the landscape so completely that even their closest pursuers couldn't follow. Their knowledge of stealth and survival was so advanced that they often seemed to vanish into thin air. But did they truly disappear? Or did something else take them? The Apache believed in more than just the physical world. Their spiritual beliefs were deeply tied to the land they called home. They believed their ancestors' spirits lingered, watching over the earth. The warriors who fell in battle didn't simply die and disappear. Their spirits became guardians of the desert, watching over their people and seeking vengeance against those who harmed their sacred land. In the oral traditions of the Apache, stories were told of warriors who died in battle but never truly left. These warriors, instead of moving on to the afterlife, stayed behind, their spirits forever tied to the desert. And in times of great need, when the land was threatened, these spirits were said to rise, haunting the enemy in the form of ghostly raiders. The concept of the Apache warrior spirit wasn't just symbolic. It was believed that the spirits of fallen warriors would take physical form, ghostly figures seen riding across the desert on horseback, as if still carrying out raids. But these weren't just any raids. They were whispers of vengeance against those who wronged the Apache people, both living and dead. One of the most chilling aspects of the Apache legend is the story of the Ghost Raiders. These aren't tales of warriors who fought on the battlefield. These are the stories of warriors who disappeared. Imagine this. You're out in the desert, in the dead of night, and suddenly you see them, Apache warriors mounted on horseback, cloaked in the dust of the desert, riding like shadows, disappearing as quickly as they came. These are the Ghost Raiders. But what are they really? Throughout history, people have claimed to witness these spectral warriors riding silently through the desert, their faces painted with war markings, their eyes glowing with an otherworldly fire. These ghostly apparitions were never violent, in the traditional sense. They weren't seeking war. They were seeking justice. Travelers, prospectors, and even military men have told stories of seeing Apache riders on the horizon, only to blink and find they had vanished into thin air. One of the most famous accounts comes from a group of miners working in the Arizona desert. Late one evening, as the wind began to howl through the canyon, the miners looked up to see figures riding through the twilight, a band of Apache warriors, their horses kicking up dust as they moved across the desert. The men stared in disbelief, certain they were witnessing something supernatural. Yet just as quickly as they appeared, the riders disappeared. The miners searched the desert for hours, but no trace of the riders remained. The ghosts, as the miners called them, had vanished, as if they were never there. The Apache leaders, men like Geronimo and Cochise, are often remembered for their brutal resistance against the US military. But could these legendary figures have been more than mere men? Could they have been, as some believe, the embodiment of the spirits who still haunt the desert? Geronimo was a name feared by many. His raids were swift and merciless, leaving destruction in his wake. But Geronimo was more than a warrior. He was a shaman, a man who could communicate with the spirits. According to some, it was this deep connection to the spiritual world that made him such a powerful leader. Could his spirit still be riding the desert, watching over his people? Some even say that Geronimo's death was not the end of his journey, that his spirit lives on, riding with the ghost raiders, waiting for the day when he will strike again. Similarly, Cochise, another great Apache leader, was known for his strength and wisdom. Cochise was said to have a deep connection to the land and the spirits that inhabited it. Some stories suggest that Cochise, too, may not have passed on. His spirit, they say, still roams the land, guiding the Apache and protecting their sacred desert home. The idea that these men, these iconic leaders, never truly left the desert is a powerful one, and it fuels the belief in the Apache ghosts. Even today, in the vast and desolate stretches of the Arizona and New Mexico deserts, people continue to report strange, inexplicable sightings. Are these just modern-day mirages? Or is there something more to these accounts? In recent years, there have been numerous reports of people claiming to see ghostly riders at night, figures that appear on horseback silhouetted against the moonlight only to vanish moments later. Some travelers claim to have heard war cries carried on the wind, the unmistakable sound of drums in the distance, or the faint echo of horse hooves tapping across the sand. One particularly eerie tale comes from a park ranger working near the Arizona-New Mexico border. While on patrol, he reported seeing a group of riders moving swiftly through the desert, their forms glowing in the twilight. He described them as being so real, so lifelike, that he could almost hear their breath as they passed. But when he looked again, they were gone, vanished without a trace. In 2016, a group of hikers claimed they saw a group of Apache warriors, dressed in traditional war gear, galloping across the desert during a thunderstorm. The riders seemed to materialize from the swirling storm and disappear just as quickly. The hikers were left stunned, unsure if they had witnessed a supernatural event or if the desert had played tricks on their minds. The Apache ghosts may be more than just stories told around campfires. Maybe they're not just the stuff of folklore. Perhaps they're a legacy, a living, breathing part of the desert. The spirits of the Apache warriors, Geronimo and Cochise, are believed to ride through the desert still, guarding the sacred land, waiting for the moment when they will strike once more. And maybe, just maybe, the Apache never truly left the land. Maybe they still ride the winds of the desert, and the ghostly presence we feel is more than just a passing whisper in the night. Maybe they are watching, waiting, and in the quietest, most isolated corners of the Southwest, the Apache ghosts are still out there, lurking in the shadows, ready to return when the time is right. So next time you find yourself in the vast, desolate beauty of the Arizona or New Mexico deserts, remember, the Apache may not be just a memory. They may be closer than you think, and you might just see them waiting in the darkness,